Alright, welcome to RTP Trading, and why are you still failing at trading? It's an honest question, but a lot of us don't know the answer, so hopefully I can provide you some insight into why that may be. And it's not going to be a common reasons. Oh, you're not using the right strategy, all of that shit. It's not going to be that. It's going to be completely different to that. And it's going to be based on the fact that are your trades or your trading plan and your whole approach to trading suitable to your personality. Now, it's something I'm a firm believer of for a long time, and it's a lot easier said than done to adjust it to your personality. But chances are that many of you have had many years in experience in the markets, maybe 2 or 3 years, which if you've kind of done the work properly, you realize that the analysis side of it is not necessarily the hardest aspect of it. Now, there's so many different strategies and methods to analyze it, whether it's from support and resistance to indicators to smart money concepts and ICT and stuff like that, to Wyckoff and so many more, right? But if you kind of just stick with one and you kind of learn it, it's not the hardest thing in the world. Just like any other skill, you are probably good enough at analyzing the markets. Now, if that's not a problem, right, again, excuse my editing, so I just write a bunch of stuff around it. So, analysis, yeah, that sounds funny. Analysis, where's the little tick? I don't know how to take it either way. That's not a problem, right? Cool, just not call it X. Now, is your discipline a problem? Right, turning up and actually executing how you're supposed to be, not acting on complete impulse and thinking, oh, do you know what? I just took this loss, I have to get back in and I have to revenge trade, or getting overconfident and doubling up on your percentages and your risk and then losing a trade, and all of those general traps that you might be falling into. Now, if that's not the problem, right, what's something else? Have you got some sort of back tested plan potentially, which we'll actually get into that. It's a bit of a touchy subject for me, but we'll get to it in a second. But have you practiced that strategy enough? Do you know exactly what you're looking for? Can you find that consistently, and does it work? Right? Does the risk reward work? All of that stuff. But let's say that's also you ticked it off. Look, I've done years and years of back testing. I just don't know what happens, but when it goes to live, it's just completely different. I hear that, but there's probably other things in there, right? Your psychology and whatnot. But the main thing is, does it suit your personality? There you go. Right. Does it suit your personality? Now, like I said, I'm so big on this as a concept, and it's the hardest thing to do. But let's just say, for example, on this chart, I'm going to go on. I'm going to use this because when I was recording this yesterday, it just made sense as an example. But let's say for whatever reason, my analysis has drawn me to a conclusion that we're going to go up to this level of liquidity or resistance, whatever you want to class it as, right? And all throughout here, you've got so many different ways you can get involved. Now, yes, we're cleanly into an uptrend. Now, realistically, we don't really start these bullish moves, technically speaking, until we violate this. Right now, where I'm going with this is the way I used to trade was support and resistance and trends, and there was so much value in breaks of structure, and over the years I just don't value them, whether I'm scarred from the support and resistance aspect, but my judgment's changed, so I don't fully believe in that to be the only way I set my bias. So in the meantime, let's say you've had these breaks of structure, right? You've got your break here, you've got your pullback, and these are the pullbacks I see. So you might see something different, that's completely fine, but these are the swings I would see. Here's my actual next break, and that's what I was taught. Here's my new low. I'll carry on a little bit after, and it is relatively smooth. I actually don't want to say smooth, but it's working so far, right? These being kind of respected and the trend being intact. Now, when it gets to situations like this, for example, and again, this is going to be hindsight, so you're not going to be, I'm not looking into why this setup, why that. I'm not talking about analysis. It's about the psychology between it. But let's say, here's my previous low, new high, new low, new high, right? if for whatever reason, because obviously I'm using this as a lost example, I don't believe that this zone will hold, or if you want to go down the order block route down here or imbalance in there, if I don't believe these will hold, just because, you know, I don't want my trading plan to be so rigid to tell me, well, you have to buy here. It doesn't matter what you think, you have to buy it. And that used to be me, and I used to fight these battles. And, you know, price will go all the way down here, and I might still think, oh, I think it's going to go up. However, because of this break of structure for all these levels, and we don't really break this until much later on, right? Oh, we've got a break here. Maybe you're bullish, but again, we've got another break past this level. And guess what? We've got another order block / kill zone, however you want to go down, and you might take a loss. But all of this is preventable if you actually had some sort of judgment. Or for me, it is, because I have a way of analyzing the markets, and I have values in the markets of what I think is important to me, and structure is not one of them. Now, to you, that might be the cornerstone of your philosophy, and that is completely fine. I really want to reiterate throughout this whole channel that it's about you. It's not me telling you what to do, it's just giving you ideas and understanding your own mind on why I am struggling and what can I do to fix this. But if you're ever finding these battles on a regular basis, where I did that for so long in my life, where my system is rigid. That's how I was brought up to trade. It has to be very strict, if this then that, almost robotic. And you know what, if it's going well, great. Like, you can really stick with it. You think, wow, I'm really scamming the living here, I'm barely putting any mental effort in. I've put in about a year or two of work in, back tested it, this, now it's just rinse and repeat. Reality for me it's not that, just wasn't that easy. And, you know, I wish it was, but I've had to develop that and kind of unlearn that rigidness out of my trading. And again, for you, you might actually like that rigidity, or you might lack it, and you maybe need to implement it and give that a go. And you go with it, and you just got to figure out what is it that you value in the markets. There's so many different concepts, from liquidity to Wyckoff to, you know, smart money concepts, all your order blocks and imbalances and stuff, to support and resistance, to indicators, and they will either overlap or kind of clash with each other, but it's down to you to figure out what you value. At the end of the day, every trade you should go, what you do end up going into, you should have firm belief in, I think this will happen because of X, Y, Z, and that's my final choice. And if it doesn't go through, it doesn't go through. It is what it is. Losses are part of the game. But it's a complete different mindset of, do you know what? At the time, at 10:30 or whenever I took the trade, I generally thought would go up from here. Now, I understand it might not be the best setup, might not be the worst setup, but I thought from here to my take profit is more likely than my stop loss. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. You move on to the next one. If you're right, you're right. You move on to the next one. But if you run into the problem where your system's so rigid or so against your personality, where it's forced you into a setup of, I've had to buy here. Well, let's just use this as an example, right? Because this would have been the very old me. I've had to buy here because support terms, resistance, blah, blah, blah. My target's there. Target one would be here realistically, but let's just run with this for the sake of the argument. And you're sat there like, all right, cool. Well, I don't think it's the best setup, but my rules told me to buy. I'll be a good trader. I'll be disciplined to stick to my plan because that's what I should do and that's what I've been told to do. Oh shit, it's taking a loss. Oh no, alright, it's fine. On to the next one. But this little chip, that little chip in your armor, over and over and over again, because I promise you now, it happened to me for so long, and it breaks you down mentally every single time. And if things are not going well and you're taking losses that almost feel like out of your control, you want to grab it. You want to grab that control for yourself. And I had that battle for so long personally. So I'm trying to basically make you aware of it for you to kind of be like, oh shit, maybe I'm going through this. How can I approach it? How can I fix this? Because like I said at the start, analysis is probably not your problem. Everyone's been in and around the markets and skilled enough to make predictions. I'm sure if you're going back test now and going to replay mode and stuff like that, you're going to find great setups and you're like, oh wow, I'm actually good at this. Do you know what? Yeah, look at me judging this market correctly, analyzing it correctly, this. Oh, it's played out perfectly like I wanted it to, right? Most of you are actually good at that. most of you have put in the hard work. If you haven't, step one, go back and do the hard work of all of that. But where I'm really targeting those people that have struggled for a few years now, and I've been in my position where, fuck, mentally it's exhausting. You know you want to do it, you know you enjoy it, and you know you're capable of doing it, but you just can't seem to get it right. So that is the main takeaway here. Really look into what suits your personality. How can I develop a plan, a system in place that every time I take a trade, I'm fully aware of what I'm going through mentally and thinking, yeah, I like this trade, and maybe it's the best setup in the world, maybe it's not. Either way, I've got my risk parameters, 1%, 2%, 0.5%, I want to go for it. Again, just be conservative with it. That's my advice. But go through it. Make sure you're comfortable from that whole higher time frame analysis, if you're going to use it, to the middle time frame or the intermediate one, and the lower time frame, or whichever process you go through. Make sure by the time you click to that buy or sell button, you think, yes, I want to be in this trade, and no one's forced me into this, and it's my decision, and I trust myself that I'm good enough to do this. So I don't know, I hope it unlocks a few things in your trading. Chances are, again, I'm not great at editing, I'm not great at this YouTube stuff, so me promoting and doing all these fancy thumbnails, it's not going to be great. So I appreciate if you kind of like it, share it around, all of that stuff, subscribe. But my goal is always, if I can save you just 1% in your journey to speed it up to get to that point where you are successful, and you know it's a lot better mentally to be successful at something than failing for years and years and years. We'll get to that, trust me, been there, done that shit. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you got some value out of this. I like to ramble on, but yeah, in a bit, boom.